is Annie from HoopSisters, and in this video we're going to show you how to do the corner applique blocks, which are blocks A1H10 and A10H1. Let's see what we need to do the block. The supplies that you're going to need to do the corner applique blocks are your fabric 1. You're going to need fabric 2, which is going to be your optional piping. So if you're going to do the piping, you will need to cut 1 1/4 inch strips on the bias and then press them in half lengthwise. And then you're also going to need your fabric 3 for your applique, your fabric 4, and also fabric for your backing. And the thread map that you'll need is you're going to need your thread A, your thread B, thread C, and your thread D. So you'll need all 4 threads. Plus you'll need matching bobbins for those thread, embroidery bobbin thread, water soluble thread, a jump drive with your designs on it, and you'll also, what will come in handy is also your hoop scissors and your hoop scissors mini. Let's get started. For step 1, you're going to hoop your battleizer, and you're going to place neutral embroidery thread in the needle and embroidery bobbin thread in the bobbin and sew the pattern onto the battleizer. So here is our step 1, and then for step number 2 we are going to be stitching out the A version, so we're going to have the piping in there. But what we're going to need is we're going to need our fabric 1, and so we're going to take our fabric 1 and place it over this bottom section, and then we're going to put water soluble thread in the needle only. And for version A, it's going to stitch this out, and there's a placement line there for your piping. Version B will only tack the fabric down. Then you're going to trim a scant 1/4 inch inside the block and leave a 1/2 inch on the outside of the block. For step 3, place thread B in the needle only and stitch the decorative stitches. For step 4, you're going to place water soluble thread in the needle only, and on version A you're going to place the piping. We're going to use some double-sided Wonder Tape and place it in between the 2 basting lines. And then go ahead and peel the opposite side of the paper away, exposing the sticky, and then we're going to go ahead and place our piping over this section. Now if you're going to do version B and not do the piping, and instead you're going to do the decorative stitch, which is version B, then you will not be putting tape on there, but instead you will put thread B in the needle only and sew the decorative stitches. But in this example for our video, we are going to be adding the piping. As soon as I can get all this tape off here. And again, we already have our piping already made, and we have it pressed in half lengthwise. And the folded part of the fabric we're going to put on the inside towards facing the fabric and put the folded edge right up to that basting stitch. And after we get that placed on there, we're going to go ahead and trim it, leaving at least a 1/2 inch over the basting stitch, and we're going to have the machine sew a tack down stitch. Here's a little tip before we take it to the machine. As you can see, the piping wants to like pop up there because of the curve of that, even though it is cut on a bias. So we're just going to take little strips of Wonder Tape and take the paper off, and we're going to go ahead and adhere that down to the other side of the piping. Okay, so now we can take water soluble thread and sew the tack down. For step 5, we're going to leave the water-soluble thread in the needle, and we're going to take fabric 4, place it right side up on the left side of the block, and we're going to take it back to the machine to sew the tack down stitches. Now we can trim our fabric away. On the inside of the block, the part that is right over the piping, we need to trim real close as if for applique. And the best tool to use to do that is the HoopSisters Mini. You can get really nice and close to the stitching. Any area that is going to be on the outside of the block, that can just be probably left alone, leaving about a ½ inch on the outside of the block. For step 6, we're going to continue with the water-soluble thread in the needle only and sew a placement stitch for the applique. For step 7, also continuing with water-soluble thread, place fabric 3 right side up over the placement stitch and sew the tack down. And now you can trim close, because we're going to finish the raw edges with a satin stitch. You can trim close right up to the stitching. For step 8, place thread A in the needle only and sew the embroidery. For step 9, place thread D in the needle and sew the satin stitches. For step 10, place thread A in the needle only and sew the decorative stitches. For step 11, place thread B in the needle only and sew the decorative stitches. For step 12, we're going to add our backing fabric to the back of the hoop. You're going to spray the wrong side of that fabric with temporary spray adhesive and center it over the center of the block, adhering it to the battleizer. And you're going to place water-soluble thread in the needle only, and the machine will sew a basting stitch. For step 13, we're going to place thread B in the needle and in the bobbin and sew the decorative stitch. You're going to want to do a needle down and a needle up to bring your bobbin thread to the top before you begin stitching, and make sure your automatic thread cutter is turned off for a nice, pretty looking back. For step 14, you're going to put thread A in the needle and in the bobbin and stitch the quilting designed and digitized by Sharon Schomburg. And for step 15, you're going to put thread C in the needle and the bobbin and sew the remaining quilting that was designed and digitized by Sharon. Let's talk a little bit about how to trim the block up now that it's completed. This is our trimmer by George 2.0. The first thing you'll have to decide when using it is what side of the block is going to have another block sewn to it, and which side of your block is going to be joined to another block. If, for instance, this side was going to have binding on it, you would trim the entire side through all layers 1/4 inch through the basting stitch. If this side was going to be joined to another block, you would pick up the fabric on the front and lay the metal edge of the trimmer between the fabric on the front and the battleizer, and then use a rotary cutter to trim all of it off. After that, you would then cut the remaining fabric on the front 1/4 inch from the basting stitch.